before I even talk about it, let us play a violin for our friends over at the Vanguard. All of that virtue signaling and you couldn't even get on the games for impact list. Being beaten out by Indica and Neva and Senua's Saga. Because you probably got pushed out of the list by Tails against Aya. Alright. Lock in.
Family, 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 family.
Kappa. Now, let's go to the noms. Let's go to the noms. I talked about them on a small level. I talked about them on a small level when I went live again on Monday. But let's dig into it live. Fuck. I can breathe. I'm too good. Okay. Let's get serious about this list. Let's start up at the top. Of all the things that can be said about this list, the first thing that has to be understood and talked about is the Game of the Year. Game of the Year means something to a lot of people. Because, of course, the GOAT! The GOAT! Meaning greatest of all time. In Gautier, you just drop the E on the end. Just like the title. And just like the musician who made something that I used to know. You only call a game Game of the Year if it does something that no other game in the category can do. No other game offered to the category can do. To really break down why Game of the Year is good, we kind of have to work our way backwards. I think that'd be best. So, let's look our way backwards. Which games us to best VR and AR. And also just to make sure that we're concurrent to what they are properly. Why is the Game Awards not just showing me the Game Award website? Lord have mercy. Yeah, GameAwards.com. I don't know why that didn't come up in SEO domination. Okay, there are a lot more categories here that are actually not listed everywhere else. Let's do it this way. Alright, let's start backwards. Let's go to the bottom of the list. Best eSport team. I can tell you right now, the number one problem with the Game Awards is categories like Best Esports Team. Raise your hand if you recognize a single person who's on that list. Now me, I know all of them, but that's because I actually follow esports. Raise your hand if you in chat know a single fucking team or a single person on the teams in this list. I don't expect a lot of hands. I see no hands. Point proven. Okay? That's the first problem with Game of the Year. And with award shows in general. There's not a single fucking person who's watching the Game Awards to find out about the best esports team of the year. Let alone in games that they probably do not play at all. Of my picks that I could pick from here, there's only one team that would be picked for best esports team. And that should be South Korean's Telecom 1. SKT1. Or T1 for short. Alongside Na'Vi in Counter-Strike and in Dota. It's probably some of the better teams to exist in existence. Simply because they are dominating world champions. But if you don't play the game, you don't know who the fuck they are. Because nobody watches competitive. And by that, I mean, nobody watches competitive seriously enough to look at and compare them to what they should compare them to. There's not enough people who consume competitive content to be able to exist across the margins necessary to understand esports teams. There's not. And even in the fans of the games, they do not watch the content of the competitive scene. They only watch Worlds, which for them is their Game Awards. And they don't engage with the content of it unless they're being told that they'll be giving money to it. So that's the first fucking problem. Now, let's go forward. Which basically means go this way. Best esports athlete. This is an even worse problem. Raise your hand if you know any of the people on this team. Or teams. I will give you a hint. Some of the people that are on this list are on these teams that are in best esports team. But unless you know who the fuck they are, you have no idea who the fuck that is. Period. And maybe the only way you'd know is if you watch them because they stream the game. Like, I can tell you in this screenshot for Team Liquid that the person who's on that stage is Lorlo. But he's not on the stage for playing the game. He's not on the stage for the game that he's a part of. That's for League of Legends. They're saying Team Liquid for fucking Dota 2. Then, moving from esports to esports athlete, number one, there's only two real competitors in this tier. Faker, Chovy. Yong Yihu and Lee Sen-hyuk are literally the best of the best at what they do in the competitive sport that they're a part of. ZMJ is probably the best runner-up. Those are League of Legends players. Alexei Valerian, Matthew Herbot, and Neda Shapira, an entire other capacity for their games. And they are Dota 2 and Counter-Strike. In their respective fields, they're good. But this is about the best of the best of the best. Of the best esport athlete who's been performing year after year, split after split, season after season. And there's only really two people who come up in that capacity, and that's Chovy and Faker. They are running the Americans! They are running the gamut on the Americans! The only time that they ever lose is when they're being beaten by another Korean or European team. The Americans can never fucking compete. And yet, why are they on this list? Why are they at the Game Awards? Recognize them at a different event. We have the games, not the people who are playing the games. Then, of course, Best Esport Game. This is where it starts being recognizable, because they put this right before the other ones. Because you could go like, oh, so now they talked about the people who play these games. But then, why is Riot Games on this list twice? Well, I know why Riot Games is on this list twice. Riot Games is on this list twice because they're competing against the other two games that are against Valve on this list twice. They're competing against Dota 2 and Counter-Strike. But it's not CSGO, it's Counter-Strike 2. Technically, if you want to be accurate, for the game that has delivered the most overall best esport experience to players, inclusive of tournaments, community support, and content updates, irrespective of genre and platform, there is an argument for why it's here, which is the same reason why Mobile Legends Bang Bang is also here. Because at that point, why is League of Legends here and not League of Legends Wild Rift? Considering that it's a better game than League of Legends, but for mobile. Separate, different event. We're here about single player and multiplayer games that people actually like playing. That don't give them fucking anger issues. That don't piss them the fuck off. Moving forward on the list. Again, why are people on this list for Content Creator of the Year? Because this is now, popularity contest. Not accounting for the VTuber, who more than likely had to earn her spot to be on this list. Queso. Who doesn't know Queso? I know who doesn't know Queso. Most fucking people who aren't Twitch streamers. The only way you know who Queso is if you happen to understand the melody of what I'm about to sing. Strawberry cheesecake. And that's it. He's a fat guy who's known for getting mocked by his audience for being fat. You would know him if you know about the Papa Meat Canyon video that was made satirizing how people talk about him. But you don't know who the fuck these people are! And what about you? Then, you move forward. Most anticipated game. Now we can actually talk about something that's serious. Now we're in a competitive field where you can actually make some kind of judgment about something that deserves to be voted upon. Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Ghost of Yotai. GTA 6. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Monster Hunter Wilds. There are 3 games on this list, technically 4, depending on if you like movie games, that actually has a justification of winning. Metroid Prime, Monster Hunters, GTA 6, and Ghost of Yotai and Death Stranding 2 are competing in the last slot against each other. I am of the Metroid Prime fanbase. I am of the Metroid fanbase. We have not been eating for fucking years! We were starving with dread! And then you tell us Metroid Prime 4 is coming around the corner, it's coming up soon? Monster Hunter Wilds releases February next year. We are marching towards December with great haste. We're waiting. I didn't play the open playtest because I want to learn it all on day one, fresh and clean as the day she put me in. Grand Theft Auto 6, AAA voice slot. It's expected to be there, but hey, it's at least a multiplayer game or a single player game people will enjoy. And then Death Stranding 2 and Ghost of Yotai operate in the same position. Ghost of Yotai, single player. Death Stranding 2, movie game for voice acting and impact and a bunch of other shit that I don't care for. But at the very minimum, these 5 picks are actual serious contestants. Queso is the most wholesome streamer ever, but most people don't know who the fuck he is. Because in order to know him, you have to know streamer culture. And most people don't engage with streamer culture. They only engage with the memes that they see. Pumpkin Potion is a perfect case example of that. Everybody was hot for her when they saw the stream clips of her shit. But it didn't translate into them watching her. Either way, Most anticipated games where you can actually start having a conversation about the games. Then we get into the best adaptation. Arguably, this is tangential to games, in that these are adaptations of their storylines. Now you start getting into EFAP territory. Should Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft be on this list when this series just came out? Knuckles is older, Arcane is older, Fallout is older, even Yakuza Like a Dragon is older. Should they be on this list? And then, if we're talking about who deserves to be on the list, do they have enough pull to legitimize its adaptation? Because at that point, why is Knuckles here by itself and not the entire movie Sonic franchise? From Sonic the Hedgehog 1 to Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and Knuckles. And then technically the upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog 3. But then if you want to get down to brass tacks, who truly deserves to win adaptation? And are there people that are left out of adaptation that should have been on this list? I can't think of any shows. Because if this is about another entertainment medium's translation. And unless we're talking about something that's playing on an audiobook, I can't really think of anything. Arcane, right now, is premiering its final season in acts, just like it did for its first season, in acts of 1 through 3, building up a 3-act structure that will break down the world between Zon and Piltover. The storyline between these two nations, basically, and a couple of characters that are champions that correlate to the game. Another opportunity, by the way, just like how I said about Helldivers 2, for them to harmonize on releases for the game and say, you guys voted and it won, and now coming up soon, a patch that's going to be live literally in 1 hour. Log in, dude! Arcane has brought a lot of people to start simping over Jace. Simping over Jace, simping over Ambessa, simping over Arcane's design of, well, technically just Arcane's design of Jinx, Arcane's design of Violet, Vi, Arcane's design of Caitlyn, generally over the Twink Crusher herself, Ambessa, her daughter Mel, and even over Victor and Jace, ideologically speaking, and Echo as well, and Heimerdinger as well. Fallout? Walter Goggins is probably the best pull of this show. But for everything else, Fallout should lose, automatically. Period. Ultimately, the show itself is not bad, but the writing can get really shit. The entertainment factor of watching the ghoul do what he does is great. But that's not enough to carry the franchise. Then, Knuckles, having watched it, especially from the complainers that finally said, how dare you put your politics in my media context, but make it Israel and make it Jews. Knuckles, just like Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2, takes a lot of time to actually respect the canonity of at least the Adventure Saga. It is a satisfying story, with a satisfying roundabout conclusion. It doesn't make you feel like shit watching it. It doesn't make you feel like shit enjoying it. Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft, I'm pretty sure is on this list because people are simping for Haley Atwell. They are simping for Haley Atwell and the lesbian-designed Lara Croft. Truly, DEI Goyslop. But of the strongest adaptations that are on this list, I don't have an opinion of Like the Dragon Yakuza. For me, I think it's bland. It's just there because they wanted to try and push this on the Western example. But of the strongest competitors on this list, Arcane competes against Knuckles, and Fallout has to take a hard second. Lara Croft probably takes third. Not the greatest assembly, but again, this is basically shit about adaptation that has nothing to do about video games that I can fucking play. And the movies would not encourage me to play the games, because I'd be looking for the newest era of games, of course. It's not like I expect that if Fallout were to win, they're going to come out with a release for Fallout 76. We're making it free for a year. Try it out. Get three free months of Fallout first. I don't see it. Moving on. Best multiplayer. Helldivers 2 and Warhammer Space Marines 2 is here. Somehow, Super Mario Party Jamboree is on this list as well. Tekken 8 is on this list as well. But not Sparking Zero. Bizarre. And then, of course, the AAA Goy slot choice, Black Ops 6. The strongest competitors on this list is Tekken 8, Space Marines 2, and Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 and Space Marine 2 are competing against each other because they have the exact same thing in common. And what they have in common is that they were a first early adopter move game that was being sold as the newest return of gaming joy. But of course, the gaming loci, as I call them, the culture vultures, all they did was migrate from Helldivers 2 to Space Marines 2 and say the same shit that they said about Helldivers about Space Marines 2. So their opinion is not being considered here. But the cultural zeitgeist that they bring for content, especially in the update, Helldivers 2 has ingoodified itself to deserve its spot on this list. Space Marines 2 created enough content for both the PvM players and the PvP players that they can justify a spot on this list. Tekken more than justifies its spot on its list for both casual players as well as the competitive players that are playing on the ranked ladders. Call of Duty is on this list simply because it is a multiplayer game for people who like shooters. This, of course, I don't think includes Warzone, but I think there's more people who are farming the zombies mode than anything else. I cannot tell you why Super Mario Party Jamboree is on this list. I can't. I didn't even realize they released a new Mario Party. But it's probably because they released it as Super Mario Party. Come on, Nintendo. Come on, Nintendo. Okay. Super Mario Party Jamboree, Nintendo Switch, physical. Does not say when it was released, but I have to assume it was released this year. "22 playable characters, 7 game boards, 110 mini-games in single-player and multiplayer modes." This article was written October 29th, 2024. But you're showing me a picture for Wonder. Interesting. Review threads. It offers a great selection of minigames, well-tuned mechanics, dynamic max, a bunch of side modes. Wikipedia entry. I do not care. Wikipedia, get out of my face. Released October 17th. Yeah, I think this is way too new. No. Mario Party Jamboree is way too new. It's way too new. However, who do I think should sweep this contestment? Ranks 1 and 2 are going to be hard contested between Helldivers 2, Space Marines 2, and Tekken 8. Tekken 8 should definitely take, if not top spot number 1, simply for being more consistent. Because in my opinion, while it should be a best multiplayer, it probably doesn't take 1. It probably takes 1 if Space Marines 2 doesn't get a audience vote that breaks it over the tie, or if the industry figures don't vote for Space Marines 2 because they're culture vultures. Or they don't try to vote in Call of Duty Black Ops 6. In my opinion, who should win this category? If Tekken 8 does not take slot 1, Helldivers 2 has a hard contestment against Space Marines 2 and takes slot 1. Otherwise, Space Marines 2 takes slot 1, Helldivers takes slot 2, and Tekken 8 takes slot 3. It could go between the 3 of them. But those are the hardest competitors. Somewhere in that list, Call of Duty will exist. If it's rigged, it will be Call of Duty. If it's not rigged, it will be between these 3. Best sports and racing. Everybody playing sports and racing games. Not for real, for real. There are some competitors who will. There are some people who are definitely picking up WWE 2K24. But this is not even looked at by most players. Most people do not see this. In my opinion, the one that's going to take it automatically, just for simplicity of fun, is going to be WWE. Like 100%. WWE would take it, if we're being serious. Sim Strategy. Another one on the list. One that shouldn't be here. Age of Mythology Retold. This is like if you released Age of Empires and put it here. Kunitsugami, Unicorn Overlord, Mana Lords, Frostpunch 2. 2 games are competing on this list. Unicorn Overlord, Vanillaware Studios, Sega and Atlas. This game comes from the same maker as Odin Sphere. And Odin Sphere already wins in a lot of capacity for their knowledge about how to make a game better and how to make a game fun. Frostpunk 2 is the other hard competitor on this list, especially considering that it's a single-player game that requires a lot of knowledge to be able to play, just like Civilization. Age of Mythology probably takes a 3rd slot. I do not know enough about Mana Lords to be able to cast an opinion about it. It could be a reverse sweeper, but based on what I have heard and what I've seen about it, I don't think it's enough. Not to beat over the amount of joy people are going to have, because people are going to vote for this because they're going to see this as the audience opinion. And this or this will end up being the industry opinions. So it's either Frostpunk 2 or Unicorn Overlord. Next on the list, Best Family. I looked into this for Astrobot and the Plucky Squire. In terms of family play, like people together, playing it together, it's Astrobot versus Princess Peach Showtime and the Plucky Squire. Because this looks more like, in the case of Echoes of Wisdom, looks more like a single-player game. Because of course it's running on the engine for Link's Awakening, which is what they would use for all of their popular remakes. And this is what I thought was going to happen. I was almost certain that they were using the design engine that was used for Link's Awakening to make Echoes of Wisdom. And my thoughts were confirmed. It's the same way I thought this about Tokyo Mirage Sessions. And how Tokyo Mirage Sessions engine was just the SMT 4.5 engine that they would then use for SMT5 and SMT5 Vengeance. And I'm happy that I did not pull the trigger on SMT5 at the time, because now I get to play the updated version with all the perks! But Princess Peach Showtime probably takes more. Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, simply because more people have been playing it recently, probably takes over more. Astrobot probably takes over more. Plucky Squire has enough of an argument, because it's like if you take the work of the author of Captain Underpants. I can't remember his name. Dave Plokey? Dav Pilkey. No, Dave and Dav. Dave and Dav Pilkey. It's like if you took the art design of that and created an unironically real storybook that plays out on the screen. All of these, I imagine, are great family picks. And this is where I would justify seeing Super Mario Party Jamboree. If it's going to be on the list, it should be in this capacity, and this order. This is also the first mention of Astrobot. Count how many times that happens for any of the Gautier noms. Moving forward. Best Fighting. Tekken 8. Sparking Zero's first mention. Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising. MVC Remaster. And Multiverses. Multiverses should not be on this list, in my opinion. But MVC shouldn't be on this list either, because this is a repackage. A censored repackage even, but a repackage. Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising, heard nothing about it, despite it being an Arc Systems game. So it's competing against Dragon Ball Sparking Zero and Tekken 8. Sparking Zero should sweep this. Tekken 8 takes it at number 2, but Sparking Zero sweeps this. There's nothing that has more energy behind it than Sparking Zero on this list. Because there should be technically 5 games plus more on these lists for these noms. They only chose 5. There should be 10. Moving forward. Best RPG. Here we see the first mention of Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. But yet, here is the first mention of Dragon's Dogma 2, which released much earlier in that. On this list as well is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is also in the Gautier list. Then we see Infinite Wealth and Re Fandanzino, which is also on that list. Fandanzino probably earns its spot here, simply as a close enough copy to SMT and Persona to get past the margin to get people interested in it. Not accounting for the fucking dog shit writing and localization. And worldviews written therein. 7 should not be on this fucking list, period. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't even be in Game of the Year either. But it shouldn't be here simply because this game was false marketing. We were being given a remaster of Final Fantasy VII. What we were being sold was a what-if fantasy sequel. Call it its own thing. Call it a reshipping of what was done with Final Fantasy XIII. But do not try and sell me a lie about this game. They want to push this because they are so scared of inserting discs 2, it is unfucking real. And then, my serious contention with Shadow of the Erdtree being on SRPG versus Dragon Dogma 2. Dragon's Dogma, Dark Arisen, which is to say, the finalized version of Dragon's Dogma. One that you could still play today, because remember, the dragon never truly resets, he just goes through generation cycles. Is a game that you can always revisit, unlike Dark Souls, and I would even argue unlike base concept Elden Ring, that gives you so much replayability and so much fun with replaying the game over and over in different ways. And it's extremely hard to argue that there isn't a way for you to enjoy that loop. And the same thing exists as well in Dragon's Dogma 2. I saw them Spinks edits. I saw y'all motherfuckers simping over a bird woman. I saw it. I saw it. I saw y'all. You were seen. You were spotted. You were noticed. But it definitely did more than Erdtree did. Erdtree is simply fun because it's the most popular one. Dogma had more technical prowess. It had more effort and concepts made about it. Period. In a serious contest, Dogma and Erdtree are fighting against each other for number 1. Metaphor secures a solid number 2. Infinite Dragon, bottom of the barrel. And then, I guess, because of that, whatever happens between 7 and Infinite Wealth, you have your 4 and 5. Dragon's Dogma, in my opinion, should be number 1. Shadow of the Erdtree is a very close second. And then Metaphor takes 3rd. Because of that. These 3 should be in Game of the Year. But of course, in my opinion, there should be at least 10 nominations. But these 3 should be in Game of the Year. And they're not. At least, Dragon's Dogma is not. I don't know if anybody else has ever played Dragon's Dogma. We probably will play it on camera at some point, especially if we have to fill for content for January and February. But oh my god, this game is so goddamn good. How the fuck is it not there? Moving forward. Here we go. Another nom of Astrobot, this time for action adventure. Technically, you could say this is action adventure and platforming. Laughable, laughable, laughable. Although, I would have to say, in the case of Ubisoft, The Lost Crown, if you get past the Wakanda is forever bullshit of the new fucking title character, is a 2D platformer return to glory in the original concept of Prince of Persia. And when I say the original Prince of Persia, I mean literally the original, like, Atari 64 version of Prince of Persia. It gets closer to the spirit of what Prince of Persia 1 through 3, The Sands of Time, Warrior Within, and Two Thrones was trying to achieve. It does the same thing that Rayman Legends and Legends 2 does, in which it brings the spirit of the world into the modern day design, but brings it to a 2D aspect. Silent Hill 2 is more of a movie game and a visual novel than it is an action-adventure game. Because Resident Evil would have more justification to be on this list. But of course, Resident Evil 8 was not released this year, and neither was the DLC for Rose. Even then, I can understand why this remake, because it is a remake, was pushed. We all know why Star Wars Outlaws is on this list. And then, here again, another show of Echoes of Wisdom. Because Astrobot is nothing but action platforming, it probably takes number one simply by being the most accessible game. Prince of Persia and Echoes of Wisdom compete against each other. If the industry tilt does what it does, they're probably going to try and vote for Star Wars Outlaws. Because Star Wars Outlaws, unfortunately, is going to push itself to the forefront by being a game that does something we've never seen before! More on that when we get to games on Impact. If the industry votes the way it does, Silent Hill 1, Star Wars 2, Astrobot 3, and then they don't give a fuck about these two. But they'll make a semi-mention about Lost Crown because black male protagonist, with dreads. If the votes for the support come through for players, player votes probably votes Astrobot 1, and probably a mixed bag between Lost Crown and Echoes of Wisdom. And then, third, hard lock Silent Hills 2, if it does not take 2, as an upset between these two. And then they fall into Category 3, Category 4, and then the entire voting block votes against Star Wars Outlaws. Moving on. Action game. Technically we call it character action game. Black Ops should not be in the fucking list for best action game. Period. It shouldn't be in this list. Because this is a multiplayer game. It is a glorified storyline campaign, zombies, and multiplayer. It should not be an action game. Ignoring it, Black Myth Wukong, Helldivers 2, Space Marines 2, Stellar Blade. We have an argument for where Stellar Blade competes against Black Myth and possibly knocks it out for position 1. Because if we're going to be serious about the amount of games that deserve to have that part of the list, there would be more argument to replace Call of Duty with Lies of P. It wouldn't win, but it has more right to be on this list. Although I'm pretty sure that was not released this year. If it was, my brain is foggy on it. I didn't play Lies of P. I just know that it exists. And I watched Dev play it, of course. That being said, Black Myth Wukong and Stellar Blade are single player. Helldivers 2 and Space Marines 2 are multiplayer. The only concept that would apply for this, I think, should have been single player video games. Because then, if you vote single player video games, this is where you actually have a right to slide in Shadow of the Erdtree or Dragon's Dogma. If you want to be serious. Dragon's Dogma is more action combat than it is the RPG element. The RPG element comes in with how you pick the playstyle that you then choose to go into. So, why the fuck is he here? Lies of P was last year. Okay. I've been picking up a lot of water. So, that being said, ignoring Black Ops 6, whatever wins Best Action Game depends on how many people are voting in the block. If they're pushing live service games, which is what I expect the industry to do, they're going to compete Helldivers 2 against Space Marines. If they're voting for single player games, the industry is going to do a 180 and they're going to push Black Myth. If they care about audience opinion as well as audience opinion, whether or not they plus or minus for the Gooner bait, it would be Stellar Blade. My voting block says that these two fight for number 1. And then these two fight for number 2. And then bottom of the barrel should be Black Ops. Moving forward. Best VR and AR. This is one that people aren't going to give a shit about because they probably didn't even know that these were being made. In my opinion, the best one was probably Arkham Shadow. From there, Metal Hellsinger. And then maybe Asgard's Wrath. Everything else that could have been in this field for VR and AR, most players won't have a vote because they can't afford the fucking technology. I know I can't afford a MetaQuest. Can you afford a MetaQuest, chat? Raise your hands if you can afford a MetaQuest. I forgot to turn the tower off. You have the quest too. Rich man, rich man. But my point stands. Most players do not have the ability to afford this. So because they don't have the ability to afford it, it's a nothing category for them. Some probably will have a strong opinion. Me, personally, of what I saw of Arkham would have the biggest push because it looks like a proper Arkham game that was just crushed down into VR. Honestly, if this game was released for a console, it probably would win awards, simply off the fact that it looks like a better game than what was given by anyone involved with the WB recently. It looks like a good game that people want to actually play. Whether or not they give it the credit as such remains to be seen. In that position, I put Arkham Shadows number 1. Not a very big list that most people are really banking on. Moving forward. Best mobile game. This one is really hard. And the reason why it's really hard is because Balatro and Wuthering Waves is on this list, next to Zenless Zero and AFK Journey. I don't know a lot of people who play Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket. I don't know a lot of people who actively are competitors in Pokemon TCG. But for those who are unaware or uninformed, Wuthering Waves, Zenless Zero, and AFK Journey is a series of games that are made for the anime consuming market. Alongside this would be Nikki and others that have the anime appeal. If there was a pocket version of the First Descendant and they were to put it on this list, First Descendant probably would just slap no matter fucking what. But the First Descendant cannot be played on mobile unless you're playing Steam Deck, I think. But Balatro is on this list next to these games. These 3 games, for the market appeal that they have, actually make up a very serious voting block of the American voting public that could be voting for this, or the general global voting public that could be voting for this. Off that alone, I would say Wuthering Waves is probably the bigger competitor. Because ironically enough, because it wasn't released this year, you cannot put the other one that Wuthering Waves gets compared to on here, Genshin Impact. You can't put Genshin Impact on here, but Wuthering Waves is here. Has a lot of energy behind it. It's got a lot of push behind it, but so does Balatro. Balatro is probably the first win that it should definitely take. Because I've got Balatro for the Switch, and I've got the Balatro on the PC. I bought it on the PC before I bought it for the Switch, because I wanted that anytime that I went over to my place, I wanted Star to have something to do whenever we were managing Zulu. It's a worthwhile purchase. On the appeal factor alone, I think that would be the list up. Balatro, in my case, would be number 1, and then all of these fall in line based on popularity. Whichever one has the bigger fan base or has the biggest appeal to the market would be the one that gets voted in. In the industry position, they don't have anything in this list that they really want to vote for, so they will only be voting for Balatro. It's a bit of a sweep category for Balatro. Moving forward. Best indie debut. Balatro. Because I haven't heard of Animal Well. That doesn't mean that Animal Well isn't relevant, but I haven't heard of Animal Well. And I've been paying attention to most of the zeitgeist. Plucky Squire. When I looked over this list the first time, I looked into it and I looked at it and I thought, when you really talk about the best debut game that was made by an independent studio, it definitely is that. Not aware of Pacific Drive, wasn't aware of Manowars. But it's between these two. Don't have a lot to say for some of these because the choice is very fucking simple. Just based on the amount of noise and appeal around it. This is more at the detriment of the publishers not making enough noise about it, and the supporters and the people who like this game not mentioning it enough to other people offhanded. Moving forward, best independent game. Once again, Balatro. There is a world where UFO 50 is number 2. But for most people in the industry, they're probably going to lean on Neva because black protagonist. But Balatro and UFO 50 compete for number 1. Neva competes number 2. Moving forward. Also, that's at least 3 noms for Balatro so far. Best community support. Now we see Baldur's Gate 3. Why? Probably for the same reason you see Final Fantasy 14 and Fortnite. Because this should be the category. Right here. Helldivers 2. Full sweep. Because it's on the list for the same reason No Man's Sky is on the list. No Man's Sky, the number 1 world. Fucking in good name. No Man's Sky, no, please. I've had too many good updates. Here's another free update. Helldivers 2 has done the same thing after Buff Divers. 63 days of nerfs, buffs, rebalances, refixes, and community outreach. From the owner of the company himself, stepping down from CEO to head of creative to say, I'm gonna bring you the good shit. It deserves to win off that alone. It deserves to win off that alone. It deserves to win off of that alone. Because this is the demonstration of a game that was fucked over by its publisher and was forced in real time to learn how to make the game good again. It's never going to reach back to where it was because there's a bunch of fucking lemmings that already jumped ship to Space Marines 2. But it deserves to win because this was another case example of the market share clearly telling you what the market wants. The market said, I want this game to be good. Multiple people, content chasing for it, said, oh man, it's so bad that they have to do this to the game. I hope they finally make it better again. Update, bit, fix, nerf, fix, buff. 44 buffs in a goddamn row! 44 buffs in a goddamn row! Changes to enemies, changes to weapons, changes to map, additions to the map, changes and nerfs to the weapons, adjustments to the weapons, outright changes that stop bugs that have been a problem since day 1 ever happening again! But you didn't hear shit about it! You certainly didn't from Grums! You certainly didn't from any of the other people! You certainly didn't from the fucking marketplace, because where were they? They were on Space Marines too! It's the same kind of story that deserves to have a video made by Internet Historian about it. On that alone, it should win, period. Now, to glaze Fortnite for a second, because technically Fortnite should be in the multiplayer category as well. If you were to make a best shooter category, it would win. What has happened to Fortnite is an example of a weird thing that very rarely happens ever in a field where people are chasing the content based on a structure of a genre that they want to make work. There are 2 games that I will mention for this. The first is Fortnite, the other one is Battlerite. Those who played Battlerite know that it was in the design of a 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 arena fighter. Fighter in the sense that characters had skills, but it was more like a hero shooter. It went the way of the dodo, just like many games that were made by many companies during this time, chasing the MOBA genre and chasing the Battle Royale genre, went. Because when they went that game originally, it was a $40 to $60 buy-in for a closed audience of people playing concurrently. They were not making enough money to keep the game alive as a live service game, so they then opened it up and made it free to play. And your progression and your unlock of characters was locked behind the progression on that freemium model. This ensured the original game's death. So then they decided to open up Battle Royale. And literally made the meme of the moving fucking magic dragon bus. A joke of a meme, if I were ever to say so. Because for those of you who have watched me play, Entropy Effect, it is effectively that. Every character in the game, but you have to unlock their skills. You don't start with a basic setup. You just have to land somewhere, just like Fortnite, and figure out what you're going to use as your skill upgrades, how you're going to get your basic skills unlocked, and whatnot. At least in the effect of Entropy Effect, you start out on a run with a base level of skills, enough to be able to function to clear. And then on your way to your first boss, you figure out what potentials you want to unlock what skills you need, and you figure out how you want those skills to cooperate and interact with each other. And of course, a level 1 run is nowhere near Entropy Effect level 100. But just speaking on that alone, that game and other games like it died because they could not find a marketplace that liked the game loop enough to be willing to play it with a Battle Royale spin. Now, on the case of Fortnite. Fortnite, as we all know, and if you don't, I will tell you, started out with 2 modes. The first was the more marketed Battle Royale. The second was Save the World. I'm pretty sure Save the World mode no longer exists. I'd be proven wrong. It actually still does exist. I just know for a fact this is not the thing that people know about and talk about with Fortnite. Is Save the World mode still a thing? Come on. Bring it up. Oh my fucking god, Reddit, get it together. Server error. Server error. Is this your Fortnite? Is this your fucking platform? Is this exactly what you talk about? Oh my fucking god. Blah, 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 blah. Effectively, Save the World mode is just basically a side mode, more or less. This was the original mode of Fortnite. What originally building was based around. And it has been abandoned, more or less. Or just put off in like a side emergency mode. It's buried for the Norman Gary's mod. Okay. So, Fortnite. 2 modes. Save the World, Battle Royale. Battle Royale starts out with build. Build means you need to be able to build fast and build well and build high in order to get high ground and cover to outplay other opponents. A good enough game loop that gives you enough outreach and enough community support that the best of the best that can do this, think Ninja, think TSM Myth, think Shroud, think It's Timmy, and others that have stable enough skill that can compare and compete, can actually win Royales. Because you cannot rat in Fortnite. You actually need to be able to build, at least in this time of the cycle. I compare it to Guns the Duel. Any person who knows Guns the Duel was a game that required you to have enough skill to do what we call katana style, also known as K style. There are still lots and lots and lots of hours of what this skill looks like. For it, I'm going to play a video of highlights for you. And yes, the game really did look like that. It was really fucking bad.
Fantastic. Killing spree. Triple kill.
You beast, bro.
Fantastic.
As my case example here with my demonstration shows, Whereas Fortnite needs you to learn how to build, Guns the Duel, a South Korean designed video game, required you to learn how to exploit a particular movement bug in the system that created this unique gun-playing game style. If you could not do this, you could not compete. If you could not compete, you cannot win. Eventually, people begin to realize the problem. And for that, I think I can actually find a video of that, because I can actually find a video of people complaining about it. Lord have mercy. Google SEO is fucking dog shit. Okay. Let's use this from Daily Clips. Ninja explains why turbo building in the meta is ruining Fortnite for normal players.
Wow, you are annoying.
Okay, let's explain what's happening in this clip. What's happening in this clip is that Ninja is doing what's called bear crushing. The storm is to Ninja's back. Ninja has found and trapped a player between the storm wall and him. He is forcing them to build in such a position that he's trying to get open opportunity to break down their structures so that he can take away their cover and start opening up on them with shots. He cannot do so because the player is turbo building, meaning this person is either so good or is using a cheat, a mod, a hack, or some type of auto hotkey system to build so quickly that he is rebuilding the wall structure and the ceiling structure faster than Ninja can break it. When he threw his destructibles and he threw his consumables, he was able to bring it down, but he built the shit back that fucking quickly. Using the cover of the storm, the player is now building underneath and towards Ninja, using the thing as cover, thus breaking his line of sight and causing Ninja to have to now lock the fuck in to win this duel, because now both of them are in the storm, meaning both of them are going to start taking direct health damage. This is where most deals and most spreads can become hard. Let me increase the fucking frame rate, because for some reason it dipped all the way to 360, so you can see what's happening.
Another campfire, huh? Bro, dude, I'm sorry, man. At this point, it's almost like Epic needs matchmaking, dude. I don't see a Smitty Barstool winning a game in this meta. Maybe on PC. I don't know, man. This is just so nuts. This is every fight. I'm getting double team, triple team, third party, launched on, built on, pyramided. Like that buff to the turbo update, man. Like the turbo build buff. So that you 100% can't get shot, basically, if you're building. Like, good luck killing anyone, man. You need stink grenades, dynamite, clingers, explosives. I just always use Smitty because he's such a perfect example of, like, you know, the casual player. I'm sitting here with 2 kills because I literally can't get kills. Like, that guy would rather die to the storm. It's not just the meta, it's the people are just too sweaty. Like, everyone's getting so good at the game now.
So, just like how earlier, at the beginning of the stream, I made fun of Shroud for complaining that a person is too shit. Here's an example where Ninja's complaining that people are now too good. This is what I've talked about when I talk about the MOBAs that I play, namely being Smite 2, Smite 1, and League of Legends, and a couple of others that have existed that I probably have not played on camera for a while, or ever at all. where the skill level of the people that are already playing is so good that there is a high barometer that you have to be able to meet and beat in order to compete against them. So he's talking from the other side of the margin. Shroud's complaining that, oh my god, people are so dog shit. Ninja's complaining that, oh my god, the average player is too fucking good. Or they're just so fucking capped out that it's impossible for me to kill them because of how much has been given to them to be able to now do what the fuck they want to do. Let the clip continue playing.
Wow, that was the hardest 6-game kill I've ever had.
This was the world in which the context behind Fortnite existed. Instead of removing building entirely and thus destroying the entire design of Fortnite, what they did instead was involve a new game mode. And of course, never-ending collabs, never-ending emotes, never-ending skins. If you can name it in pop culture, it's probably in the fucking game. New areas, new modes, evolutions of the maps, removal of areas of the map, changes and transmogrifications of the map, extra designs, extra mechanics. But all of them are straight up, straightforward, and simple. And then, of course, the inclusion of no build. Instead of forcing players to have to now become good enough to compete by building, you make it now better where they have to only really worry about the first skill that matters, which is gunplay. Making it and basing it on gunplay instead of basing it on everything else now means that they can learn less mechanics. They don't have to worry about learning how to build like a fucking champion. Now they have to learn how to slice and pie. They gotta learn how to cut corners and learn the mechanics of all the weapons that are available. The recent update that was added was the Eminem Cove, the Eminem Cave, and the Eminem Minigun, based on his verse in Rap God. You know the one. By doing this, they elevated Fortnite to a zeitgeist in popular culture without needing to know the concept of the game. It was no longer a meme about where we're dropping. Now it's a meme about, oh my god, Peter Griffin is Willie hitting the Gwitty? And all the other fucking jokes that go along with it too. Hugo Hilaire. You know the one. The one who's popular for doing the... I can't even do it right. Fucking the sway dance. It's hard. It's an African dance. Pull it up for you really quick. This guy. His dance. All three of them are emotes. All three of them are emotes into the game. And then, of course, side content that came along with it. The side content of the emotes, the collaborations, the pop culture shit, even the cringe political shit. Even if you disagreed with it, even if it was dumb, you were still talking about Fortnite. That in and of itself is valuable in its own regard. And so, also along with Helldivers do, Fortnite has earned the argument to talk, and talk that shit. Because they actually earned the zeitgeist on shooters, unlike Call of Duty, that only gets it because Arcane, 343, and all the other companies that are owned by their developer have them in the fucking design lines, constantly working on updates for the game, and constantly churning out the next fucking Black Ops SWAT, or Call of Duty SWAT. There's more arguments you can make about this with the release of the Modern Warfare update, or excuse me, the Modern Warfare remaster. But even then, they have just had the slot by existing. Fortnite and Epic Games, to their credit, I'll still talk shit about the Epic Games Store, but to their design and to their credit, they actually earned the right to say, we can talk that shit. Put this alongside Baldur's Gate 3 and it giving mod access. And put this alongside Final Fantasy XIV in the fact that they carved out a niche and proved themselves as the better MMO, beating out and truly killing WoW. Every single competitor in this tier actually deserves to be here. And yet, now the question remains, who deserves to win? Who deserves to win? And I honestly could not tell you who really deserves to win the most. I would say in the case of Baldur's Gate 3, if you talk about the people who actually played the game and were completing challenges and farming honor mode, I don't know. I know that Fortnite is competing against Final Fantasy XIV for number 2. Helldivers 2 and No Man's Sky and Baldur's Gate 3 are having an all-out blood warfare to claim the top spot and any spot that comes underneath Fortnite. Because Fortnite is probably the strongest number 2 competitor for the reward slot. Hard lock-in. For community purposes, Helldivers 2 probably takes a number 1 slot. If you're talking about community support for actual multiplayer community, which is what I say community is, in my opinion. Because it at least actually does involve community. It actually does involve community. Everything else, harder to argue. Because it involves less about community and more about pop culture. I would say that Baldur's Gate 3 is a lot more popular in the pop culture position, excuse me, than it is just on the general crush. Because if you crush it all down to one thing, and you had to say what it did best, Baldur's Gate 3 was a good CRPG. A buggy CRPG, but it was still a good CRPG. Helldivers 2 is an actual serious community outreach, where I actively have to tell other players, no leaving behind Helldivers in my lobby. Everybody gets back on that ship, or we all die. Outside of cosplaying, you cannot pay for a better experience than that. Because like most games that usually require it, you have to actually become good at Helldivers 2. You have to learn the system. The same way you had to learn the system in Fortnite. The same way you had to learn the system in No Man's Sky. And the same way you had to learn the system, your inputs, your combos, your buttons, and the content, and the lore of Final Fantasy XIV. But Final Fantasy XIV did one thing that was good, and that was not forcing you to make an alternate character. All the different jobs can be taken up by your character. You just have to be willing to play the storylines. And then, of course, push your way through the content, level up with the content, understand the world, digest the lore. So, you've got yourself the ability to play content on one account and experience so much to be offered. A game that gives you a serious opportunity to play against literal different scenarios and outcomes and situations based on the zones that you like to frequent, based on an ever-changing world map that will always shrink the death circle, which forces you to engage in combat. A 4-man multiplayer experience where you have to learn how to adapt to that map the same way you would in Fortnite. But you have to do so now against a living bot, and you have to think about your loadouts and modify your loadouts to survive those challenges in this pseudo-extraction shooter. A sandbox survival game that has now met its true match as a survival game and has never stopped updating since. And one of the year's best single-player CRPG experiences that can be played multiplayer if you wish with people that you know as your friends, and fucking around in Act 1 for hours and hours and hours on it. If you ever make it out of Act 1, of course. I honestly could not tell you who the final stacks should be, but I do believe Helldivers 2, if it does not place top 1, probably would be the best proper win. As for what the audience will vote for, I think Helldivers 2 and Baldur's Gate 3 are going to compete in that category. But Fortnite has to be on this list for a hard select number 2, simply for the work that it's done in creating community outreach to get to the point where they can have that. Because, of course, in order for them to get all those emotes, they had to actually ask players. They had to look at the culture and actually consume the culture to put it in. And the fact that they did that, how often do you see that happen? Moving on. Best ongoing. Number 1. The same thing what the guy said in the list. Why is Warframe not in here? Destiny 2's in here and Warframe's not in here. That's bizarre. Best ongoing. Why is Path of Exile 1 not in here? Because even though Fortnite does have a storyline, it should not be on here for best ongoing. It shouldn't. Path of Exile should be on here. But of course, like I said, none of the people who are in the gaming industry played Path of Exile. They never even got out of Act 1. They probably even never got past the first 10 levels of the level experience. What can I say about Destiny 2? I can't say shit about Destiny 2. I don't play it. I understand the people who do play it, and I know what they've said about it. It's the same thing you could say about Final Fantasy XIV. The story, the lore, the world building, the events, and the player involvement, and the community outreach. Shit, when Riddick died, everybody fucking cried. The fact that a voice actor played the game actively, and the last thing known is that he left his character logged in, and people started celebrating around his logged in character. That's community itself. On that alone, you could probably argue that it would be on here too. If nothing for that, it would be Baldur's Gate being here. But that's left to be said. There's an argument for Destiny 2. There's an argument for Final Fantasy XIV. There's an argument for Helldivers 2. And I guess there's an argument in the case of ongoing for Fortnite, but I don't think it should be here. Why the fuck is Diablo 4 here? Path of Exile is eating Diablo 4's lunch! Festival of Hatred is dog shit! But okay, alright. Who do I think wins this category? Honestly, Helldivers 2 is competing against Destiny 2. Heart sweet. It's one of these two. It should be one of these two, moving forward. Notice how many times we've seen Helldivers thus far. Games for Impact. Before I even talk about it, let us play a violin for our friends over at the Veilguard. All of that virtue signaling and you couldn't even get on the Games for Impact list. Being beaten out by Indica and Neva and Senua's Saga. Because you probably got pushed out of the list by Tails against Aya. Alright. Lock in. Let's talk about what Games for Impact actually means. What does impact really mean? Can anyone in chat give me an actual serious paragraph or a sentence that explains what Games for Impact means to them? Bet you can't do it. I bet you can't do it. Because for the life of me, I cannot think about a game once where I've said, you know, I didn't necessarily care that much about the game's story, but man, they really earned the right to be able to talk about that. I can't think of one. I cannot think of one. I cannot think of one. Not one. Can't do it. Can't do it, dude. I can't do it. I can't do it. It's not real to me. It's not real to me. Not a single one. Not a single one. Cora's working, so she can. For me, when the games made a serious mechanical change that impacted the gaming industry. I also played ZOW, it didn't really impact me at all. This, I don't know what the hell this is. What they claim it is a thought-provoking game with a pro-social meaning or message. I don't think Games for Impact should be in that category, because really all this means is political fossilization. I don't care about the social message. Is the game good? And ironically enough, Double Exposure's on this list. So we're back again with the original game that started it all. We're back with a member of the fucking sibling brigade. Lord have mercy that we be finding ourselves back here again with Ashley Birch of all people. But games for impact. Double Exposure, Senua's Saga, Tales of Gonzaria, Closer the Distance, Indica. Never heard of Indica. Never heard of Closer the Distance. I have heard of Double Exposure because it's a AAA game. I have heard of Senua's Saga because I paid attention to Senua's Sacrifice for Hellblade 1. I've been talking about the story of Tales of Gonzaria, and I've already said that as a Metroidvania, it definitely deserves to be here because it doesn't play like some bullshit slop. It doesn't have a social message being shoved into the story first, and then having literally barely their gameplay to qualify as a game, like Dustborn. It's a real, true-blooded, serious fucking game. Excellent Question probably gets the closest to what this actually means. Did you fulfill our diversity quota award, the award? In this category, not accounting for Neva, which again is a Devolver Digital game, which, oh my god, how many games in this list are going to be pushed by Devolver Digital, Devolver Digital, and be a game that actually gets over the margin for those AAA entries? Of all the games that could be in this capacity, that could be in this position, if you want to talk about a game that had a pro-social meaning and message that still entertained you as a game, these games probably shouldn't be here. This is all industry picks. And yet if I had to choose, it probably is between these three. And who should win within all of these is the one, in my opinion, is the most of a game, which would automatically be Gonzaria. Because of course you can tell a story in your game and you can have a message in your game, but you still have to have a game first. And this is the most gamey of all of them. Senua's Saga was more of a visual experience than it was a video game. But since they decided to make a sequel, you'd have to play this in order to figure it out. Because of course, Senua was a VR game. And then I guess maybe they made a port that would work on consoles so you could experience the same eclectic. But I don't know. Still, I don't think any of these games should be on this list for games with impact, based on what gamers want. But based on the industry, this is all industry slop, more or less. But if I had to vote for something I would win, I would vote for Tales of Gonzaria. Moving on. Innovation and accessibility. This is one where I look at this and I say, what the fuck are you talking about? Because here we finally see Dragon Age the Veilguard. They get out on accessibility, but what does that actually mean? Recognizing software and or hardware that is pushing the medium forward by adding features, technology, and content to help games be played and enjoyed by an even wider audience. Garbage. Because what does that actually mean? Can't mean difficulty. It has to mean cheats. And if you're not going to call it what it is and call them cheats, where you give people infinite ammo, infinite health, or a journo mode that basically turns off all difficulty of the game, which in the case of Dragon Age the Veilguard, I do know that there are people that are not playing on the higher difficulties simply because the game is fucking boring. The fights are the same at each difficulty, so why increase the difficulty of the game? In this category, if you had to have one that would win, maybe you can say Diablo 4. If you wanted to squint your eyes really, really hard, Prince of Persia hits a close 2. Diablo 4 probably takes 1. Veilguard takes a 3rd slot, because ain't nobody giving a fuck about Star Wars Outlaws. And that's how that plays out, moving forward. Best performance. Nobody cares about this in this capacity. I said this the day that I looked at this. Because again, if you don't know anything about the industry, you don't know who the fuck these people are. This is just like the esports section. And the esports team section. You would have to play the games and hear the voices. And because these are all from games that are being put out here because they're industry darlings. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Double Exposure, Outlaws, Silent Hill 2, Senua's Saga. Unless you play the games, you have no fucking clue. Unless, of course, you're talking about motion action. But unfortunately, these are American picks. If we want to talk about real motion capture, there's a South Korean actress that should be on this list that basically does a lot of work with League of Legends and a lot of work with single-player video games. who is not on this list, including the other ones that were the body models for Stellar Blade that are not here. But if we had to pick one, I think the one that gets the most performance and should win this award is Melina Jurgens. Because Senua's Sacrifice is a game where they effectively have to make the best use of their mocap. Unlike most games, like that of the voice acting done in fucking Horizon Zero Dawn, or Horizon as a franchise, or any of the modern update voice swap games that have done this, or any of the other ones, especially, ironically, including fucking Dad of War, Senua's Saga is probably one that best gets the argument to justify having a reward and an award for mocap. If they had done this the year before and they had included anybody from, years back, for like the last 5 years. If you were to go far back enough to do this for ones that involve things like the mocap for Devil May Cry 5, you could make a very big argument that Devil May Cry 5 would simply sweep based on how well they made use of the mocap. Because technically Devil May Cry would sweep that category no matter what, because they've always done that ever since the mocap with Devil May Cry. I'd argue 2, 3 if you want to be serious, especially in the case of Ruben Langdon, but they've been doing it the entire time for the franchise, so they would just automatically win. But, you know, it's a gimme category. It's definitely a category that most gamers literally have no fucking clue about, because how many gamers pay attention to the voice actors? They don't care about the voice actors personally, they care about their performances. Anyways, audio design. Another one where I say to myself, why the fuck isn't Crab's Treasure on this list? But if you had to pick one, probably Astrobot. It doesn't even need to be explained. It doesn't even need to be explained. Now, if you want to go for audio design in the sense of the thing that had the best build over, maybe Silent Hill 2. And then if you wanted to argue for the same reasons that people had voted for Senua's Blade, then Hellblade 2. But full sweep, it would be Astrobot. Moving forward. Best score in music. Again, Astrobot. Not even hard. Now, if you try to go for music alone, I bet there's a lot more music in Metaphor, and there's a lot more music in Stellar Blade that hits. But again, of course, it is what it is. Because in my opinion, it should be based on original works in the score. Nothing licensed for soundtrack. That's my opinion, of course. Moving forward. Art direction. This one is actually where you start having a bit of a toss-up. Because now, again, Black Myth Wukong is competing against Astrobot. And Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, is competing against Metaphor. As well as Neva. I need to pee. 1 second. Okay. So, as I was saying, art direction goes a very interesting place. Neva, based on its indie developer art appearance, is deserving of this category. All of the competitors in this category are deserving of this category. But they're deserving of being in this category for very specifically different achievements in their artistic design and their animations. The weakest of this is actually Astrobot. The strongest of this is Black Myth Wukong, simply for the style in which it chooses to bring the story to life. Everything else, they all deserve their position for the particular type of art style that they're going for, with the most obvious one being the most anime, being Metaphor. Off of that, which one should win is based on what your appeal is. If you like the simplistic, minimalist design, you're probably going to like the clean, sleek style of Astrobot. If you like the gritty design, you're going to be competing against Elden Ring and Black Myth, for different reasons. If you like the anime design, you're going Metaphor. And if you want something that basically is not any of those, and is specifically its own style in a indie capacity, you're going to go Neva. This one is a toss-up. Personally, I do not care who wins this category. However, if you wanted to go simply by appearance and appeal, Metaphor probably would win. Maybe, depending on how you view things. Moving forward. Narrative. If what we're talking about is storytelling and narrative, and this is what you want to say should be a thing in the game, this is where Senua's Saga and Silent Hill 2 are going to compete against each other. Really hard. Like, really hard. They're going to compete against each other really fucking hard. From there, you're left with a couple of options. Silent Hill 2 probably wins simply for bringing Silent Hill's game design into modern updates. Senua's Saga wins for the same reason for why Hellblade even exists, which was narrative development. Metaphor Rita Vanzino probably can win simply for the type of design that it has as a new up-and-comer from Studio Zero with help from Atlas and Sega. I do not look for Infinite Wealth, and I do not look for Rebirth, because I do not legitimize the bait and switch that Rebirth is. My strongest vote for this would be Hellblade. Most of the gaming press would probably vote for Hellblade or Silent Hill 2. Gamers could vote for Rita Vanzino. They would probably also vote for Silent Hill 2. Now, moving on. Game direction. Here we have 4 of the GOTY competitors. Actually, 5. No, actually all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I think this is all of them. You have multiple GOTY competitors inside of game direction, especially for creative vision. In my opinion, again, Balatro should win this. Clean sweep. Simply for its innovation of game direction and design and how it keeps you engaged in the process of playing the game. Not even hard. From there, this really, again, now depends on your appeal of art style. It really does. If you like the appeal of the modern AAA, then this is Black Myth, this is Elden Ring. If you like the indie or the anime, you're probably going to go Metaphor. If you're a stickler for updated designs of characters brought up to an updated style, you're going to go FF7. And if you care about the more simplistic minimalist, you care about Astrobot. In my opinion, this should be Balatro on a clean sweep. And then, this now brings us back to Game of the Year. Based on all the things I've already said about all the competitors that could have been in any particular game, let's read what the subsection says. Recognizing a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields. Can we really say that Final Fantasy VII does that, based on where and what was suggested in other categories? No. Hell no. You can make an argument for Metaphor. Can we say this about Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, as a DLC release? I don't know. I'm leaning on no. But the final answer would probably be a unsure maybe. Can we say this about Black Myth Wukong? Yes. Can we say this about Balatro? Very much yes. Can we say this about Astrobot? Very much yes. Ultimately, whoever wins Game of the Year, it's going to be seen as though, if it's not Balatro, that gamers win no matter what. But really, the industry would probably push Black Myth. Simply because of how IGN and Rebecca Valentine not only tried to play this game up as a fucking joke, but got it wrong, and then they finally turned when they saw that support was not in favor of them going down the Chuds route, and they finally said, oh my god, this game is so good. They'd probably push Black Myth. They might also do the same thing with Elden Ring, for the same reasons. The weakest on this list is 7. The second weakest is Metaphor. All the first 4 in this category are strong competitors. But it is with my serious opinion that Balatro has to take the sweep for this top spot. For all the other categories it's placed in, I think it should sweep, period. But on Game of the Year, Balatro should win. Balatro itself should win. And that's what I think about the Game Awards in terms of the noms. Next stream, we'll talk about whether or not those nominations in their own categories are relevant, and we'll be looking at the opinions that people give about and why, but those videos, they are not out yet. At least people haven't made their calls about it. The events are not close enough to be released, so we haven't seen them yet. If you find them, please post them inside of Printing Press Express, either inside the gaming category or in its own separate category that I'll make right now for nominations for the Game Award. In here, all of the content that I expect to see for the Game Award noms, I would be breaking down, and we will be breaking down as an audience for Versus Chat. Because I expect to be able to put together a full show based around the game noms themselves. Because the game nominations and breaking down their opinions from other people themselves will be a talking point and be a content thread of its own variety. Because I expect there to be plenty. But those are my picks. Those are my picks for the year. Those are my picks for the event as a whole. Now we have ran over 15 minutes past 5. So we will be tuning out now and moving on to the gaming section of the stream. And I have to go make dinner. But I will come back within 5 minutes. Thank you for those of you who have chosen to come with us and join us here on yet another Carl at Home. I have been Carl. This is my home. You are my audience. I will see you all again at a later date. Later on this week, I need to talk to Horror and find out when she has time, when she's not at work. But we will be finishing the Pokemon Takes video. Oh God, is it going to fucking hurt? But we're going to finish that video, by God. And then, from there, we will be looking forward towards the updates coming in soon. As we approach Thanksgiving, for the December release of Path of Exile 2. Because the release has been made concurrent, they have released the number on the supporter packs. The supporter packs will be $30. More than likely, I can scratch up $30. So if you would like to be able to pay for your content, consider sending your donations directly into my pocket at any of the direct methods. Either by Ko-fi or by direct payment through YouTube. Probably Ko-fi if you want it to come to me the most immediate. Support for both watching the show, talking about the show, and supporting the stream, as well as the channel, is appreciated on all sources. I appreciate all of you that are watching me live on all 3 platforms in which I am broadcasting to. I am Carl, and I will be seeing you all next time. Hugs and kisses. Mwah, 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 la la la, ah.